From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
Kamala, you're fired.
I say, bring it on.
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America. Hello and welcome to Firstpost America. I'm Eric Ham, coming to you live from the Democratic National Convention here in Chicago. Over the next few minutes, we'll take you inside what's being billed as the greatest political show in America, at least this week. But before that, let's get you caught up on the latest headlines. Ukraine launches its largest ever drone attack on Russia's capital city, Moscow. The Kremlin says its forces intercepted 45 Ukrainian drones over Moscow's airspace. Robert Kennedy Jr.'s running mate says the independent presidential candidate could drop out of the race and join forces with Republican Donald Trump. This as Kennedy's campaign says it does not support Kamala Harris to be the next president. A bus carrying Pakistani pilgrims overturns in central Iran, killing at least 28 and wounding over 32. Officials blame the accident on a technical glitch in the vehicle's braking system. Argentina quarantines a cargo ship over a suspected mpox case on board. The Libyan flagged ship arrived in Argentina after unloading agricultural cargo from Brazil. And Sweden issues licenses to kill 20% of its brown bear population as part of the country's annual animal trophy hunt. Activists protest the move as the brown bear population in Sweden drops below the 500 mark for the first time since 2008. We begin here in the United States. Former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama gave powerful speeches here at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. The theme for the second night at the convention was a bold vision for America's future. Taking the stage to a roaring welcome, Barack Obama opened his speech saluting the second city. He credited the Windy City for his political fame. The first black president in U.S. history insisted that the nation is now ready to elect Kamala Harris, who is of black and Indian heritage, as the first female president. The former president commended the Democratic Party for its diversity and called it the real American dream.
I am feeling hopeful because this convention has always been pretty good to kids with funny names who believe in a country where anything is possible. Because we have a chance to elect someone who has spent her entire life trying to give people the same chances America gave her. Someone who sees you and hears you and will get up every single day and fight for you. The next president of the United States of America, Kamala Harris.
Now, the 44th president of the United States electrified the Chicago audience as he urged America to vote for Kamala Harris. President Obama also took a dig at Donald Trump, calling him a whiny billionaire who's afraid of losing to the vice president.
Here's a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problems since he rode down his golden escalator 9 years ago. It has been a constant stream of gripes and grievances that's actually been getting worse now that he's afraid of losing to Kamala. There's the childish nicknames, the crazy conspiracy theories, this weird obsession with crowd sizes.
Now, along with former President Obama, his wife and former First Lady Michelle Obama also took shots at Donald Trump and accused him of being jealous of successful people of color.
For years, Donald Trump did everything in his power to try to make people fear us. See, his limited, narrow view of the world made him feel threatened by the existence of two hardworking, highly educated, successful people who happen to be Black. Wait. I want to know, who's going to tell him that the job he's currently seeking might just be one of those Black jobs?
The former president concluded the night with a call to the Democratic Party to work hard towards electing Kamala Harris to the White House as the crowd erupted in chants of "Yes, she can," a spinoff from Barack Obama's iconic "Yes, we can" slogan from the 2008 presidential race.
If we work like we've never worked before, if we hold firm to our convictions, we will elect Kamala Harris as the next president of the United States and Tim Walz as the next vice president of the United States. We will elect leaders up and down the ballot who will fight for the hopeful, forward-looking America we all believe in, and together we too will build a country that is more secure and more just, more equal and more free. So let's get to work. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
Now, apart from the Obamas, the convention witnessed speeches from Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Donald Trump's former press secretary Stephanie Grisham, and celebrities like Lil Jon and Spike Lee. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris made a virtual appearance at the second day of the convention while campaigning with her running mate Tim Walz in neighboring Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Contrast that with Donald Trump's rallies this week, which have been short and small and have largely been overshadowed by the Democratic convention. The Republican presidential candidate visited Howell, Michigan, a town with deep ties to white supremacists, including the Ku Klux Klan, one of the nation's oldest and most brutal domestic terror groups. In fact, Donald Trump's visit to Howell, Michigan comes almost a month after white supremacists rallied in the Michigan town where they chanted "Heil Hitler" and equated the German Nazi to Donald Trump. With elections just over 2 months away, Donald Trump is attempting to consolidate his hard-right evangelical and white supremacist MAGA voter base, fearing a loss to Kamala Harris. And staying in the United States, President Joe Biden has approved a classified nuclear strategy to prepare for a possible nuclear confrontation with China. On Tuesday, the White House confirmed that the nuclear plan had been approved by the commander-in-chief in March of this year. White House spokesperson Sean Savage said the specific text of the strategy remains classified. However, its existence is no secret. In fact, the New York Times first broke the development and reported it as America's latest nuclear deterrent policy against China. Now, this comes amid reports that China plans to double its nuclear warheads from 500 to 1,000 by 2030. Now, Russia leads the world with almost 6,000 nuclear weapons, followed by the United States with more than 5,000 weapons. China rounds out the top three with just over 500 nuclear warheads in its stockpile. However, U.S. intel reports say that Beijing intends to increase its nuclear warheads and achieve parity with the United States in a span of just 10 years. White House officials say that the nuclear strategy document signed by President Biden comes at a time when the world faces growing nuclear tensions. Now, Beijing has refused to enter discussions with Washington over potential nuclear arms. In addition, the Pentagon is worried of a coordinated or even joint nuclear attack from China, Russia, and North Korea, who regularly threaten the United States and the West with nuclear war. The nuclear strategy plan also includes building deterrence in the Middle East against Iran, which has reportedly enriched enough uranium to build at least 3 nuclear warheads since it backed out of the nuclear deal with the United States when Donald Trump was in office. Now, the nuclear plan remains a stark reminder that whoever is sworn into office next January will confront growing threats from Iran, China, North Korea, and Russia. And speaking of Russia, Vladimir Putin made a rare and unannounced visit to the North Caucasus Republic of Chechnya just yesterday, the first in nearly 13 years. The visit, shrouded in secrecy, was focused on inspecting Chechen troops and volunteers preparing to join the fight in Ukraine. Accompanying Putin was Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov, known for his unwavering loyalty to the Russian president. Speaking at the Russian University of Special Forces, Putin praised the volunteers, declaring that as long as Russia had men like them, it would be, in his words, invincible.
The one thing is to shoot at the shooting gallery here, and the other thing is to put life and health at risk. But you have an inner demand to fight for fatherland and courage to make such a decision.
Now, Kadyrov has been instrumental in mobilizing Chechen forces against Ukraine. The Chechen leader boasted that more than 47,000 troops, including 19,000 volunteers, have been deployed on the front lines since the war began. However, Kyiv's recent invasion of Russia's northern border has proven to be a significant embarrassment for both Putin and his military. Now, before arriving in Chechnya, Putin made a stop in Beslan, marking his first visit there in at least 16 years. The town is notorious for the 2004 school siege, where more than 330 people, including 136 children, were killed in a brutal attack by Islamic militants. Putin addressed the tragedy, describing it as an unhealed wound in Russia's historical memory. He further drew parallels between the past and current threats, stressing the ongoing need to combat those seeking to destabilize the country.
It's a terrible terrorist act that took the lives of 334 people, 136 of them children. It's hard to even imagine. Our people sometimes say the following words: you wouldn't wish it on your enemy. But our enemy, he is different. He is not like us, although they seem to have heads and arms. We know well that those from abroad tried not only to justify this terrible crime, but also provided terrorists with all kinds of assistance: moral, political, informational, financial, and military. They continue this work with an attempt to destabilize our country. This is obvious. And just as we fought against terrorists, we now have to fight those who commit crimes in the Kursk region, in Donbass and Novorossiya.
Now, Putin's visit comes at a critical time for Russian forces, who are facing what some analysts describe as the largest scale invasion of Russia since the Second World War. And as the Russian president departed Chechnya, questions linger about Moscow's next move. And next we go in space, where astronauts remain grounded. Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore were supposed to be back on Earth months ago, but a thruster failure in Boeing's Starliner has left them stranded in orbit. A former U.S. space commander has now laid out 3 horrific scenarios that may unfold should Williams and Wilmore embark on their journey back to Earth in a faulty spacecraft. Here's our report with more details.
Astronauts Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore were supposed to spend just 8 days aboard the International Space Station. Yet, over 2 months later, they find themselves in an unexpected predicament that has captivated the world's attention. Stranded in space with no clear path home. Their odyssey began on June 5th when they docked at the ISS as part of Boeing's much-anticipated Starliner mission. It was supposed to be a historic moment, marking the spacecraft's inaugural test flight with a crew aboard. But what was meant to be a brief stay has morphed into a nerve-wracking saga, with the 2 astronauts living on borrowed time. The culprit? A malfunction in the Starliner's thrusters that has grounded them indefinitely. NASA, one of the world's leading space agencies, now finds itself grappling with an agonizing decision: trust the faulty spacecraft to bring them home, or gamble on a risky rescue mission using SpaceX's Dragon capsule. In the balance are not just the lives of 2 seasoned astronauts, but the very reputation of Boeing's Starliner program and NASA's ability to safely navigate the treacherous terrain of human spaceflight. But as the days turn into weeks, concern is growing. Rudy Ridolfi, a former US military space system commander, has come forward with a dire warning. According to Ridolfi, if NASA decides to attempt a re-entry with a malfunctioning Starliner, the astronauts could face three catastrophic scenarios. The first scenario is eerily reminiscent of a cosmic purgatory. He says if the Starliner service module fails to position the capsule correctly, the spacecraft might bounce off the Earth's atmosphere like a stone skipping across a pond. This miscalculation would leave Williams and Wilmore adrift in space with only 96 hours of oxygen remaining. The second possibility is no less harrowing. Should the service module misalign the capsule during re-entry, the spacecraft could fail to penetrate the atmosphere altogether. The result? The astronauts would remain stuck in orbit, stranded, and with no hope of rescue as their oxygen dwindles. But it's the third scenario that sends chills down the spine of anyone who hears it. Ridolfi's most chilling warning involves the Starliner entering the Earth's atmosphere at too steep an angle. In this nightmarish situation, the capsule's heat shield would be unable to withstand the extreme temperatures, causing it to burn up on re-entry, and the astronauts would be vaporized in a matter of seconds. As the clock ticks down, NASA is faced with a monumental decision. Should they roll the dice on the Boeing Starliner, hoping that the thrusters miraculously perform as needed?
If you could relay a message to our...
Or do they launch a high-stakes rescue mission using SpaceX's Dragon, knowing that even the slightest misstep could spell disaster? As the world watches holding its breath, NASA weighs its options. But for now, Williams and Wilmore remain marooned in space with their fates hanging in the balance.
And finally, from Pakistan, the country's parliament has been overrun by hundreds of oversized rats. The rodent problem came to light when the rats turned important documents into midnight snacks. The Pakistani parliament has now allocated thousands of dollars for pest control. They're deploying an army of hunting cats so that politicians can focus on bigger problems plaguing the country rather than supersized rats. Here's our report with more.
Pakistan, it seems, just can't catch a break. Ever since it was carved out of India, the country has been juggling crises like a circus performer with too many balls in the air. Economic nosedives, political roller coasters, inflation, widespread hunger, and a never-ending battle with terrorism. If there's a problem, Pakistan is probably grappling with it. Adding to this ever-growing catalogue of woes is a new headache. Not your run-of-the-mill political scandal or a military coup. No, this time the trouble comes from another source. The parliament itself is under siege by an army of rats. The place that's supposed to run the country is running from rodents. Now, before you shrug and think rats are everywhere, let us tell you that these are not your ordinary rodents. In Pakistan's parliament, the rats have grown to such monstrous proportions that they could probably scare off a cat. In a bizarre twist of fate, it looks like the rats here might have stumbled upon some secret stash of steroids. The full scale of this furry invasion came to light when a committee requested some old documents from 2008. The record keepers unearthed papers that had been turned into a rodent's midnight snack. By the time the officials got their hands on the chewed-up documents, the rats had clearly thrown quite the party. The infestation has escalated to such epic proportions that the Powers Corridors have allocated $4,300, which is 1.2 million Pakistani rupees, to tackle the problem. That's a tidy sum that could have been put to good use elsewhere. But alas, it's now earmarked for the Great Rodent Roundup, all in an attempt to make Pakistan's legislative halls of power rat-free. It turns out that most of these oversized squatters have made themselves comfortable on the parliament's first floor, prime location where the Senate opposition gathers. Political parties hash out their differences, and most importantly, it is where the food hall resides. So really, can one blame the rats? Even the rodents know where the good stuff is. By day, these sneaky creatures keep a low profile, minding their own business. But when night falls, the rats turn the parliament into an all-you-can-eat buffet, where the food and drinks are on Pakistan. The regulars in parliament have gotten used to these four-legged companions. However, new visitors dressed to impress are in for a shock when they are greeted by rodents larger than life scurrying around like they own the place. Determined to solve this rodent riddle, Pakistan has reportedly turned to a novel pest control strategy. Word on the street is that they are planning to unleash a brigade of hunting cats to lure the rats out of the parliament. But will the cats triumph over the rats? Will the parliament finally be rodent-free? I guess only time will tell.
That's our show for today. We certainly thank you so much for tuning in. We hope to see you right back here again tomorrow. Thanks again for watching. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
Kamala, you're fired.
I say, bring it on.
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill. We know the issues, but above